contribute to forming European political awareness and to expressing the will of the citizens of the Union. Well, they've already defined political parties of the European Union level being parties with voters in more than 10 countries. The Conservative, Labour, Lib Dem, UKIP and BNP parties only have voters in one country.
Well, 3, you could argue.
Yeah, but they can all be abolished under that clause. If they need to, they have the power under the Lisbon Treaty to abolish our political parties. And any political party that opposes the European Union can be abolished under EU Court of Justice case 274/99, where it is held that it is blasphemy to oppose the European Union. So,
isn't blasphemy a religious term?
Well, this is sort of in their agenda, a religious crusade.
So are you saying that the Lisbon Treaty says that you cannot criticise the European Union?
No, that's the European Court of Justice. I use the term justice loosely because this is the Court of Justice that when Martha Andreasen was fired for revealing the fact that the European Union cannot account for 95% of its expenditure. She was the European Union's budget director at the time, so she should know. That's not 5% of the expenditure of the European Union it can't account for. That's 95% of the expenditure. There isn't one business in England that can't account for 95% of its expenditure, but the European Union can't.
So when she revealed this...
She was fired.
And wasn't her pension removed as well?
The European Court of Justice held that because she had told the truth, her firing was right and proper, and she had forfeited her right to her pension. That is the European Court of Justice.
And that is truly disgraceful, isn't it?
And they
that is true.
That is absolutely true. And they are the same court that enforces the Lisbon Treaty. So when they enforce justice on Martha Andreasen like that, and when they are given the remit that they have to interpret the treaties under the remit of ever closer union, you can see just how biased that court is going to be.
Well, yes, but I suppose, are you saying then that all these things are kind of waiting in the wings? They're all part of British law now. Are you saying that right now we're going through a sort of softly catchy monkey period where it's, you know, they're kind of being a bit sotto voce and not saying... I mean, for instance, by what you just said, for instance, they could say tomorrow, right, in the coming general election, we don't... A, they could say we don't need a general election because Parliament is abolished. B, they could say, in any event, the Conservative Party, the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party and any other party is abolished because it doesn't have voters in 10 nations.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
So they could say all of those things, but they're not going to do that quite yet.
Exactly right, yes. And of course there is no provision in the Lisbon Treaty for elections to a Westminster Parliament, so they could rule the whole thing illegal on that basis because there's no constitutional basis for Westminster anymore. Not a lot of people are aware that the European Union is a military dictatorship, and there's scores of clauses all through the 6 treaties. For example, page 39 of Lisbon, clause 10a, c3. Member states shall make civilian and military capabilities available to the European Union. Member states shall undertake progressively to improve their military capabilities. So we're looking at 3 unelected politburos controlling the nuclear weapons of the former nations of Britain and France. And when you put dictators in charge of armies, you always get war.
Well, we're doing quite well in any event, aren't we, in terms of wars? You know, we're having quite a few.
Yes.
Unless you notice.
Yes, but I think we're talking on a much larger scale here.
Really?
Yes. We're being trained. The government is training us to dislike Muslims and Arabs. That tells us where their first war's going to be.
Well, Iran, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. The Middle East. I'm quite sure of it.
Okay. It is quite a shocking set of statistics and information, isn't it, this? I mean...
Yes, and the most stunning thing of it is it's all written down and signed by the Queen. You know, I mean, in the Lisbon Treaty, we're allowed to have petitions. If we can get 1 million people to sign a petition, we are allowed to have a petition. But the petition, they tell us what we must ask for. In that petition of our, our own wishes, what we want, we have to want ever closer union of the European Union. That is the only thing we're allowed to petition for.
That is very Soviet, isn't it?
It is. And that is clause 17.8b4.
And we voted this in, did we? Well, we didn't get a referendum, as you know, but our elected members of Parliament voted for this.
Yeah. By the way, any political party that is campaigning for a referendum, you know immediately is working for the European Union, because we will never be allowed a referendum. So if they're campaigning for a referendum, they know they're completely safe, because we can never have one. Angela Merkel wouldn't allow it. Our government wouldn't allow it. The European Union won't allow it. We cannot have a referendum, nor can Germany, because the Germans are as anti the EU as we are. And they will never let the Germans have a vote, because the last thing the Germans want is another expansion of German ambitions with the EU as the vehicle, because 10 million Germans died in the last war. Everyone forgets that. They absolutely hate the idea of a similar dictatorship rising again.
But the Irish had a vote. Well, they had two, didn't they? They gave the wrong answer the first time, clearly.
I went to Ireland and I was knocking on doors, wasting my time, because every door I knocked on, they were absolutely dead against the Lisbon Treaty. I didn't have to explain anything to them. They were dead against it.
So how did they vote yes then?
I don't think they did. I think the government fiddled it by 40%.
Because why? Because I know that all the votes were taken into custody for 48 hours before they were counted, or something like that.
Yes. And it's happening more and more. I mean, the American elections were fiddled, firstly with the
Diebold machine. Oh no, the hanging chads, and then
the chads first.
Yeah,
and
we've
Diebold
talked about that on
yeah.
programmes. Cynthia McKinney, the former congresswoman.
And they actually did a recount. The press funded a recount in Florida and found that George Bush's brother Jeb had deliberately lost 250,000 Democratic votes. And actually, George Bush's presidency was entirely illegal, because he declared his brother the leader, the president, with only a 537 margin. And actually it went 250,000 the other way. And the newspapers started to publish their findings and then were stopped. So if they're fiddling votes there, I'm sure they're fiddling votes over here.
So, we're stuffed, is that right?
I do plan to tell everyone what to do at the end. We're not actually stuffed, and this should be the most fun fight of all, fighting for our own freedom. There is a lot we can do, but we do need at least 10,000 people. And
Well, we'll do that in the last section of the show.
No, this is another topic. The point is, not only have they moved 30,000 people up into all positions of power, so all our law lords have been chosen because of, they are either prepared to break the law or they are prepared to turn a blind eye to the EU. All our ministers have been selected exclusively because they are prepared to be pro-EU. More than half of our MPs. It goes right through our government, the BBC, everything. But down at the lower levels, they're getting at small organisations like the General Osteopathic Council, you wouldn't think, the Women's Institute. Any organisation that's got more than 5,000 members, you're finding that the good leadership is being violently ejected, often sort of fairly illegally, and corrupt people who can be controlled.
Well, again, I have to say that is your opinion and not necessarily the opinion of this show.
Well, I will say that the General Osteopathic Council has been very deeply investigated by Julia Spivak, who's laid a report in at the police, because it looks like there's criminal activity. And
I think we have to be careful here of
I
injunctions and
yes. Yes.
libel and so on.
I understand, but
so I prefer you not to make those kind of accusations on this show.
But any body that has enough members to make a difference is having its leadership replaced by corrupt people who can be controlled.